And welcome back to the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us. Winter meetings is over, but that does not mean the transactions have stopped. Last night we saw Xander Bogaerts pretty much sign right as we were all about to head off to bed. Got an 11-year deal, $280 million anyway. Great job by the San Diego Padres adding to that core. Today, we've got a couple more transactions anyway. The New York Mets were very active. Dodgers made an addition as well. So let's kind of jump in right away. I know we got a lot of you guys already commenting. Appreciate you guys joining us. here at 10 o'clock Central Time. Appreciate you. Anthony, I know you're happy about your Mets. You can't believe you got Nimmo, but that's where we'll start with Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo gets an 8-year contract worth roughly about $20+ million in average annual value. $162 million was the total value of the deal. Great deal for the player. I wonder if this deal is really going to hamstring the Mets going forward, but Cohen is really coming out swinging this offseason as far as spending that pocketbook. He's well over the $300 million threshold now. That tax bill is going to be excessive for the Mets. So we'll see how high Steve Cohen is really willing to go. Is he going to add another reliever back there? Is he going to go ahead and add a third baseman or designated hitter? Is he going to try to improve that catcher spot? They still have a spot in their rotation to solve. There's still a bunch of places where he could improve that roster, but Cohen goes out there and gets the job done. The surprising part of the Nimmo deal is the 8-year term on the deal. Now, Brandon Nimmo is a fantastic player. He is, however, 32 years old. I thought that might limit the deal to somewhere in the range of like a 5-year, maybe a 6-year deal, because he is literally the only good center fielder on the market outside of Brian Reynolds, anyway, of the Pirates. But he's available via trade, and that would cost you prospects. But he gets 8 years out of the Mets. I wonder if maybe there's higher AAVs out there, and that was part of the negotiations to get the higher dollar figure of the 162, but stretch it out over a longer term, like 8 years. But great job by the Mets. They solidify their outfield. It's going to be Canha, Nimmo, and Marte. But things are looking good right now if you're a New York Mets fan. That is not the only thing they did, however. They went ahead and added Steve Cohen to the mix as well. Things are looking good if you're a Mets fan. We wouldn't have said that about a week ago anyway. With Jacob deGrom leaving it to the Rangers, they arguably get a more dependable starter in Justin Verlander. At least he was able to pitch more innings last year, but he is a little bit older, so we'll see if he stays healthier. But things are looking much, much better than they were a week ago if you're a New York Mets fan. Welcome back in, JG. Wow, Mets, any more moves? I think they do have a few more up their sleeves anyway. Welcome back, Mark. Appreciate you for joining us. And I do think they will add one more starter. I think Quintana they view as a number 4 in that rotation with Carrasco as the number 5. I think Kodai Senga is most likely the next piece they add. I just wonder what that number is going to be. We saw a crazy number by the Red Sox given out to Masataka Yoshida. There was a rival GM out there that said that was double what anybody else on the market was actually offering for him. And maybe that kind of threw a wrench in the Kodai Senga market as well, because they are both coming from international baseball. So kind of keep that in mind as far as the Senga talks. Maybe that's the reason why he hasn't signed as of yet. But of course, Carlos Rodon is the biggest pitcher on the market right now. We'll see if the Yankees ultimately get the deal done, but they seem to be the hardest team after him right now. There are other teams that could use some serious renovations in their starting rotation. The San Francisco Giants have all kinds of money after not bringing in anybody so far outside of Mitch Haniger. Dodgers also cut $100 million in payroll. They could use a starter in that rotation. They were assumed to be favorites for Justin Verlander for much of this offseason. He ends up going to the Mets after they lose deGrom, so they do have a spot in that rotation for him if they decide to go that route. We have yet to hear any real rumors concerning Rodon to the Dodgers, though. But appreciate you guys for joining us. Bush Girl, appreciate you for coming back in anyway. Mets re-sign Nimmo, exactly. I think the Mets should trade more for relievers. Well, they've done the trade route a couple of times now. Brooks Raley they brought in the other day. Things are looking up for that bullpen, but they still have a lot of work to do back there. I mean, they had 6 free agents out of that bullpen alone. They've added a couple of relievers now. They still have more work to do. They have not been in contact with Seth Lugo as of yet, but maybe that tune will change anyway. He is being looked at as a starter, though, by other teams. Yeah, I agree that David Robertson signing was huge for you, Anthony. Welcome, everybody. Got 12 of you guys here right now. Appreciate you. Mets don't need Senga or relievers. Don't be greedy. Well, they still need a number 3 starter anyway in that rotation. But I still view Quintana as a number 4. The bullpen does need some work. Yes, they do. Quintana can be a 3 or Carrasco. Yeah, they could, but that means you're going to have to, really stretch it out at the back end of that rotation anyway. And we saw last year how things work when you have a rotation that's limited to strictly 5 starters. I mean, the Yankees ran into that problem. The Dodgers ran into that problem. A lot of these teams that had, World Series aspirations ran out of pitching at the end. And a team like Texas, for instance, they've added a ton of starting pitching this offseason. Plus, they still have other young starters that they used last year to varying levels of success or failure. But they have about 8 guys that they can roll with in a rotation and say, hey, they at least have major league experience as a starter. The Mets don't really have that right now. They need to build out that rotation, even if it's not adding a Kodai Senga. They need to add in at least some, workman type relievers or workman type back end starters. Wade Miley, Drew Smiley, stuff like that. I'm thinking like small guys, though not like the big bullpen guys. Okay, maybe Bassett, but I don't think the Mets would be willing to give Bassett the years. Well, we just saw them give Brandon Nimmo the years. They held firm though with the starting pitchers. Jacob deGrom, they didn't go past 3 years. Verlander, they didn't go past 2 years. So maybe they'll hold firm on the years for a Chris Bassett. But I still expect Bassett to get in the 4 to 5 year range. But there should be a healthy market for him. The total number should probably come in around $20 million in average annual value. Welcome back, Bryce. Blue Jays Nation is starting to hit the panic button after tonight's news. Well, I mean, you could still go out there and get a Benintendi. I was looking over numbers last night and earlier this morning anyway, just trying to get an update on who's left on the free agent market. Benintendi is not that bad of an option as far as a contact hitter. His on-base percentage was like .370 last year, good for top 20 in all of baseball. So if you bring in a guy like that, a good contact hitter in front of those power hitters that you have in Vlad Guerrero Jr., etc., that could be a nice addition for your team and won't cost you nearly as much as Brandon Nimmo did here, 8 years, $162. A luxury tax is going to make the salary like $420, probably. Yeah, he doesn't care. Doing pretty great, Bryce. Canely and Judge signing was huge to start out, and I predict they get Rodon anyway, and then get Jake McCarthy. Check the stats on him. Okay. I do think the Yankees are a lot more serious about Rodon than we originally thought a day ago. They do need several starting pitchers still. I think they need to at least add 2, possibly a third one. But bringing in Rodon would certainly help out, would certainly lengthen out that rotation. Other guys they could look at towards the back end on the free agent market anyway would be guys like Michael Walker, Sean Manaea, pieces like that. Welcome in, Ramon. Appreciate you for coming back. Blue Jays are scared to spend. Spend and feeling it at this point. Well, I don't know if they're scared to spend. I just think they're trying to hold off on the years that these teams are giving out right now. I mean, the Phillies giving 11 years to Turner. Bogart's getting 11 years. 8 years for Nimmo. Judge for 9. I mean, the years are certainly stacking up on a lot of these contracts that I think the teams are actually encouraging those longer deals because they can lower that AAV. Jordan Montgomery, yes, he is still part of the Cardinals. I think he's got 1 or 2 years left on that deal, something like that. You make me curious now. I want to double check. Make sure I got my math right. Yeah, he's still got 1 year left to control. So does Jack Flaherty. Flaherty's actually going to hit free agency at his age after his age 28 season. So Cardinals, while they do have 6 pitchers right now, they could use a long-term starter going forward. Jake McCarthy. Let's check out Jake McCarthy, shall we? Let's go to Baseball Reference anyway. As I misspelled McCarthy, of course. There we go. McCarthy is a 24-year-old. Or just turned 25 anyway. Let's see. .283 average last year, 43 RBIs, 8 home runs, 427 OPS, 769, OPS plus of 118. So he's above league average as a player. 2.4 ERA. That's not a bad option. Maybe they're seeing him as a guy who could break out. Diamondbacks do have a cluster out there in the outfield. They brought in Kyle Lewis. They have a lot of good young guys coming up, so maybe they try to trade McCarthy for some pitching. That might make some sense. Or prospects, period. What do you think the Yankees could and should do? Well, first and foremost, I address that rotation. If I get nothing else done this offseason, if I'm a Yankees fan, I want them to go ahead and get the deals done with their starting staff. They have to fix that I think if once they fix that starting rotation, they can piece together that bullpen, on the cheap if they have to. But that starting rotation is the biggest priority on that roster right now. Whether it be the free agent market with Rodon or going the trade route with Lopez or both, and then still adding some more pieces. Second thing I would do is attack that bullpen. Once you improve that pitching, any other issues that you have, a contacting outfielder, then you spend whatever you have left on that. But I would address starting rotation first and foremost. I think the Jays will go hard for trades like the Arizona outfielder like Varsho, or McCarthy, or throw a bunch at Pittsburgh for Reynolds. Reynolds actually does make a lot of sense for the Blue Jays. They have some prospects who they could trade. They've had some of their prospects drop in value over the last couple of years due to poor performance or whatever the case may be. But some of them still have really high ceilings, and so maybe they can get Pittsburgh to bite down on something like that. I find it so weird that Mets are shopping on older pitchers or just players in general. I don't know what kind of theme this is. Old veteran club is leading to. They do have a lot of older players on their roster, which is a little bit worrisome if you're a Mets fan. Where is the cliff going to be for these players? Is it after their age 34 season for Nimmo? Is it after his age 35, 36? And then you just eat the final 4 years of that contract? Is Steve Cohen still going to be the owner at that point in time because of all the money he's going to be hemorrhaging due to the tax and the payroll and everything else? Those are some serious considerations anyway. The Mets average has to be like 33. I don't know if it's over. I don't think it's over, 33, but 30 might be a little bit more reasonable. I'm sure they're going to try to bring up some young guys every now and again, and they do still have some young talent on the roster. You feel like Rodon will sign this week? I agree. I feel like Reynolds will cost too much, and teams may not want to go that much and just go after the D-backs outfielder. I mean, Reynolds is going to command a pretty penny. Not necessarily as high as you might think. He's still got 2 years left on his deal. I think this is the winter they trade him, though. It's probably going to cost two premium assets, like one of your top 5, another of your top 10 prospects, and then another prospect in your later on, in your 25 to 30 range. Maybe an extra one to throw it in, but that's probably the package that it's going to ultimately cost to get Bryan Reynolds in. But appreciate you guys joining us. Got 27 of you guys with us right now. Don't be afraid. Say hello. Drop us a like. Hit that subscribe button. Really does help us out. Here at the Upside, we cover Major League Baseball. We cover the NFL, the NHL, and the NBA. We'll get to some of those games later on this weekend anyway. We might do a live with you guys. Bassett wants 4 at least. I agree. I think that's where all the teams are at as well. They're comfortable wanting 4, or they're comfortable giving 4. 5 years, though, is I think where all the teams are going to draw the line. So we may have to settle for a 4-year offer. Just want to pull up the numbers for Chris Bassett for you guys real quick. He'll be entering his age 34 season. Pretty much been a solid mid-3s starter as far as ERA for the last 3 or 4 years anyway. Ever since the COVID-shortened season, he's been nothing but stable as far as a starter goes. He had one bad year anyway, where his ERA got up over 5 anyway. He only made 5 starts that season, though. He did get injured, didn't play until 2018 after that, and so that had more to do with it than anything else. But he's been nothing but stable ever since for Oakland and for the Mets. So we'll see where he ends up going. I think the Padres are certainly a good fit for him. The Mets, I think, are going to be right there. Those two teams are willing to spend on starting pitching, and there's still some good starters out there on the free agent market. I'm curious when the trade market's going to start heating up, because we didn't really see any big trades happen at all at the winter meetings. That was the one disappointing thing I will say about the winter meetings this year. As good as the free agent part of it was, which we haven't really had a winter meeting since 2019. The free agent side of the winter meetings was fantastic. On the trade front, though, there wasn't really a lot of activity. That's what I was really hoping to see, especially if Aaron Judge had gone to San Francisco. What would have been the pivot for the New York Yankees? Would they have made a crazy big trade for somebody we're not speculating on, something like that? I really thought the Angels were going to doing enough to keep Ohtani. I don't think they've done enough so far this offseason. What do you think? I think the Angels are literally spinning their tires. I think they're trying to make this team as best they can without investing a whole lot. because they're trying to keep the payroll down as much as they can, especially with their trying to sell the team. They want to keep it as attractive as possible, so they have improved it around the edges. They want to show that they're still pushing for a wild card spot and make it as attractive to future buyers as possible. Rumors are is that they want to get this deal done before opening day. If they do get everybody to sign on the dotted line, the sale is completed before opening day. Maybe at the trade deadline you see them, if they're out of contention anyway by the trade deadline, then we could see a trade for Shohei Ohtani, but not until then. It's just not happening, and I just don't think that there's any way Shohei stays with the Angels after this season. I just don't see it happening. Tim Anderson wants to leave White Sox. Do you think he gets traded? I haven't seen the article or anything as far as Tim Anderson wanting out. Do I think he gets traded? No, because he is literally the heartbeat of that organization, the one consistent piece in that team. But I haven't been all the way around baseball today. I've been busy with family, trying to get stuff ready for gifts and all that kind of thing, getting them packaged up and getting ready for work tomorrow. But if you want to send me that information on Tim Anderson, I'd be really appreciative. But again, if I'm the White Sox, he's the last guy I trade right now. As a White Sox fan, this past week has been going agony. No trades, no signings, no progress. Well, I mean, you lost Jose Abreu. There's some rumblings out there that you might be willing to trade Liam Hendricks. There was a couple of rumblings about Eloy Mendez. Those I didn't buy at all. Those were from very non-reputable sources anyway. But the stuff about Liam Hendricks did have some veracity to it anyway, so we'll see if he ends up getting moved. That bullpen should be a little bit better than advertised. I mean, they've already added Mike Clevenger to the starting staff, so that 1 through 5 in that rotation should be solid if they bounce back and stay healthy. But if I'm a White Sox fan, I look for Liam Hendricks to possibly be traded to free up at least a little bit of money so that this team can add a free agent or make another trade for, impact outfielder or something like that. Benintendi is going to want a big contract and not comfortable as a Yankee fan to give it to him. Well, I don't think the Yankees are going to be able to give him a big contract, period. I think they're reserving that for pitching. I think you're probably looking at most a 1-year, $10 million type of deal for an outfielder, and Benintendi's not going to take that. I think he's probably going to look for 3 at 30, something like that from the Blue Jays, maybe a little bit more, especially when you consider what Brandon Nimmo just got, 8 years at 162. If Brandon Nimmo is worth that, and Andrew Benintendi, who had a great bounce back year last year, says, hey, I'm worth at least 15 if he's worth 20 plus. Like if Rengifo can be a beast and Rendon can be great, that team could be good. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, that every single time they make these acquisitions, they just don't pan out for whatever reason. And I'm not saying it's always going to happen. They should never sign anybody. I'm just saying every single thing they've tried to make the LA Angels competitive has fallen on their face. I mean, it's happened for 10 straight years. I mean, the signing of Josh Hamilton, C.J. Wilson, Justin Upton, Albert Pujols, every single time they invest money, it doesn't work out. Noah Syndergaard, Dylan Bundy, Anthony Rendon, nothing works. What do you think about the ruling on Bauer will be? No idea. If I had to guess, every single major league team is going to hold him at arm's length. It'll be tough for him to get back into the league, just like Yasiel Puig right now. Even though he was at the winter meetings, I don't see a team going out there and bringing him in. He liked a tweet that mentioned Frank Thomas finished in another jersey, so will Tim Anderson. Well, I mean, his free agency is coming up in a year or so, and if I'm, somebody looking towards my future and I want to get the big money that Bogarts is getting, Turner is getting, Correa will get, Dansby Swanson will get, I want to, show that I'm willing to go to other clubs at some point to drive my value up, especially considering the shortstop market isn't going to be as clogged as it has been the last 2 years, where you had 5 elite shortstops on the market last year, 4 on the market this year. Tim Anderson might be on the market with only 1 or 2 other options on the free agent market when he hits free agency. Do you think the Yankees make a move soon? I think they'll make a couple of moves. I think they're going to add a couple of starting pitchers to that rotation via trade or free agency. I think those are very likely, and they're always going to add bullpen arms here or there. So I expect the Yankees to make some more additions. But appreciate you guys joining us. I was doing a little bit of a project last night. I was trying to figure out with the Texas Rangers some out-of-the-box things that they could do, or some out-of-the-box things trade-wise that teams could do. And one thing that kind of struck me is the money right now for the Milwaukee Brewers just doesn't add up as far as what they're going to do with their future. I mean, they have 3 top-flight players on their roster right now that they're going to have to figure out something to do with. So as far as trades go, if I'm a team looking to, improve my ball club, of course I'm going to make calls about Willy Adames, Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff anyway. But there's other pieces of that Milwaukee Brewers team that you should be asking about as well. I mean, we all know the Christian Yelich contract right now is hamstringing that organization, and I'm very curious to see how the Brewers kind of react to try to solve those issues. Are they going to be able to re-sign all three of their top free agents after the 2024 season? Are they going to be able to retain Woodruff, Burns, and Adames? There's an outside chance that they could, and I was just trying to think, if I was a Brewers fan, what could possibly happen. They would have to eat money on a Yelich contract. We know that, and surprisingly, I was looking at his numbers anyway. They aren't quite as bad as some of the really horrible contracts that we've seen out there. But they're going to have to eat a significant chunk of that if they do. But the most likely outcome that I still see for them is that they're going to have to trade one of those pieces. Willy Adames again is the one I would trade, especially considering how the shortstop market is as high as it is right now. There's only one great option really out there besides Dansby Swanson anyway, and Carlos Correa. Those are the two big guys left right now. But I think Dansby Swanson is going to go to either the Cubs or Braves. That leaves Correa to fight between going to the Dodgers, the Giants, or the Twins. If he stays with the Twins, the Giants swing and miss yet again at a top-flight free agent. They're going to have to answer their fans at this point. I mean, they're already up in arms over missing Aaron Judge. They thought they had him going there. But Willy Adames would have significant interest on the trade market right now, and the Dodgers have tons of prospect capital that they could use to bring him in and solve that shortstop hole for them. But that's something I would keep an eye out for if I'm a Brewers fan. And the trade market, I'm very curious how things end up going. Bryce deGrom does look good in a Rangers uniform. He most certainly does. I actually watched that press conference live. He started it a little bit rocky, to say the least anyway. By the end of it, though, Bochy, CY anyway, and deGrom all were on the same page. Big smiles, big cheesy, realistic smiles anyway. He wasn't, faking anything. The first part, though, he was a little dicey on. But we'll see how things end up working out for the Rangers. Do you think the Yanks get another outfielder, Reynolds or Benny? I don't think you're going to be able to get Benintendi. I think the market's going to move past you anyway on that one. I think the Yankees are going to bring in a starting pitcher first and foremost. As far as an outfielder, maybe they could bring in Reynolds, but that would cost a hefty amount via trade for them, as far as Peraza and maybe a couple other pieces, because they're not willing to move a guy like Dominguez or Volpe and that type of a deal. But something to keep an eye on anyway. But they should be able to bring in somebody on the cheap as far as a contact hitter. After 1 year, deGrom is going to regret leaving New York. Cohen is on a mission to win. I don't know about that, Victor. I think he's got 185 million reasons why he loves playing in Texas as of right now. And even then, he's still got some good talent around him. I think the Rangers are destined for a postseason spot next year, and I think we should be considering the Rangers as a World Series contender within the next 2 to 3 years. Not next year. I think they're still a little young, green behind the ears. They kind of need to get this Bochy thing working, and they're expecting to contend at least for a playoff spot this year, and then more beyond that. Just wait till you're humbled in the Subway Series. Well, I mean, it's Yankees, Mets in the Subway Series. I mean, they're going to beat up on each other, I'll put it that way. Yeah. And he will get 3 Cy Youngs in Texas. Well, Texas has never had a Cy Young pitcher. Texas actually has never had a pitcher finish in the top 5 of the Cy Young voting. That tells you how starved the Rangers are for starting pitching. They always have been. Nolan Ryan didn't even finish in the top 5 for Cy Young when he was with Texas. But no Cliff Lee. Nobody else has ever won a Cy Young in Texas. So if he gets in the top 5, he'll be the first Ranger to ever do it. That's why his contract actually has the option on the end of it for 1 more year if he does finish in the top 5 of any year. I saw one question out there from a subscriber anyway the other day that said, who will finish with more innings, Verlander in his 2-year contract with the Mets or deGrom in 5 with the Rangers? It's not even a question, honestly. I mean, the fluke injury that deGrom had that kept him out for basically about 2 or 3 months of this year anyway, limited his innings this year. He has had ongoing issues, but none of them are the same issue repetitively happening. And so we're going to see deGrom pitch some healthy amount of innings in Texas. Mets may as well bring Bartolo Colon back. He is actually still looking to pitch, by the way. Bartolo Colon, I think, could probably pitch until he's like 55. Still have that slow fastball anyway, and still be effective as far as putting people out. Not that, he wouldn't give up the gopher ball every now and again, but come on. He'll miss 3 years due to Tommy John? 3 years. Really? Might win more Cy Youngs, but no rings? I don't know about that. What did you say in the beginning? Oh, in the beginning, as far as deGrom's answers, he was just a little mechanical. I guess is the best way to put it. He was nervous in front of the mic, etc. He got a basic softball question. Hey, why did you come to Texas? Was basically the first question. And we want to win the World Series. That kind of thing. Typical answer. And then somebody else asked him a question a little bit differently, anyway. But he basically reiterated the same thing. This team really wants to win. We're pushing for a World Series, etc. And he was a little bit robotic in his answers in the beginning. Then he started to get more comfortable in that press conference, and you could really see, the optimism he has. He was happy about moving his family down to Texas and everything. So he's looking forward to the entire changes that they have going on. How do you feel about Baker winning his first Rams game? I didn't see the actual final score, but if he did win, hey, Baker's career isn't exactly over. I'll put it that way. I mean, there were some critics out there that would have thought that Baker Mayfield's career would have been over, especially after how badly things had gone in his last two stops. Of course, how they ended with the Cleveland Browns. Everybody thought, hey, he's being shafted. They were brought in this quarterback who hasn't played in a year and a half in Deshaun Watson, and giving him all this guaranteed money right out from underneath him. First successful quarterback they've had in whatever amount of years. Well, you kind of see in Carolina it wasn't exactly him that was responsible for the success. That defense, that running game in Cleveland is for real, and that was the reason why he had as much success as he did. I'm surprised Lance Lynn has never been in the top five, or Yu Darvish. Same here. Well, Lance Lynn only had 2 years of success with the Rangers anyway. He was, I want to say, I think Lance Lynn is finished in the top 10 for the side. I can't remember where exactly he finished. Yu Darvish was fantastic, but there were other starters in the American League when the Rangers had him that kept him out of winning the AL Cy Young. Why is Houston having a hard time getting a catcher when I'm pretty sure they could get Gary Sanchez for pretty cheap? I'm not calling Gary Sanchez a good catcher, by the way. I think they could do better. Sean Murphy is the guy I would want on the catcher market. In fact, I'm hoping the Rangers go out there and get him. I was playing with some numbers, and there's actually a pathway I see for them to be able to bring him in, save some money, and still have some money available for next off season. You hope Lynn does this year? Well, if you're a White Sox fan, you got to hope he gets back to his form. I think he will, and I think that team as a whole compete much better. deGrom never been much of a talker. No, he hasn't. He's never really been asked to be much of a leader either as far as the pitching staff. That's one thing I noticed that the New York media kind of, sandbagged him with after he left town. You never really heard any of the rumblings about Jacob deGrom not being a leader on that pitching staff, mentoring young guys, etc. But he was never really asked to do that when he first came up. They had a good veteran club anyway, for the most part, as far as that starting rotation. The young guys that were there were his same age anyway, his peers, and not exactly somebody he could rise up through the ranks. So he's never really been asked to lead a pitching staff in that way, as far as off the field tutoring, all that kind of thing. And I thought his answers during the press conference today about his excitement to have the opportunity to finally do that were really interesting to hear from Jacob deGrom. 17-16 Rams. Baker had a 98-yard winning drive. Well, there you go. Maybe his career is not dead. Lance finished fifth in the Cy for the Rangers. Okay. Are you happy Brittany Griner was freed? As an American citizen, of course. They're still working on getting somebody else out of there. I can't remember. I don't want to get into all the politics of it, but now that she's coming back to the U.S., that's always a good thing when you get Americans back on American soil. But just kind of finishing off the conversation here that I was wanting to bring up. Let me pull that up for you guys real quick. Let me see if I can pull it up. Bear with me for just a moment. There we go. Yeah, the Rangers have never had a Cy Young winner, though. Never had a Cy Young winner. Nimmo's signing is crazy to me. He's a great defender, great base runner, good speed that doesn't steal bases, has pretty weak power, never been able to stay healthy till last season. Agreed, but there's also, just the energy he brought to that team was very infectious for them. He was the only consistent bat that they had in the final month of the year or so. Um, he's the reason how they got their offense started. I'll put it that way. And for the 8 years, though, is the surprising part of that contract. I was expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 for 100, maybe 5 for 110, but 8 years, 8 years, that's a hefty sum. Sorry about the deGrom or Tommy John comment. It's just the sad and angry side of me being a Mets fan. That's all right, Anthony. You got a good team, though. I mean, even without deGrom, you brought in Verlander, you brought in Quintana, you might bring in Senga. Your rotation's going to be just fine. And Verlander isn't that far off as far as total talent than Jacob deGrom. Jacob deGrom right now is the most talented pitcher in Major League Baseball when healthy. But of course, as the Rangers, need starting pitching. That's why they were willing to go the 5 years, because they were that desperate for starting pitching, because they haven't gotten anybody developed that way. I mean, Dane Dunning never really developed into that. He's still young enough and could develop into a number 3 type starter, but as of right now, he's more of a 4 or a 5. Any of the other young starters that they've had haven't really blossomed either. Taylor Hearn, there's a long list of them that haven't really worked out for the Rangers, and that's why they had to spend the money for Jacob deGrom. Hopefully it works out for the Rangers as far as health, but that's a big, big question mark. Sorry for not being here much lately, but can you give your thoughts on Tatis? It's all right, Charles, but as far as Tatis goes, I think he probably stays at this point unless they're just absolutely blown away. It sounds like they're really, hoping to have him in left or center. The flexibility of that Bogart's coming in allows them to move Kim around. I think Profar could possibly come back and kind of finish off that outfield for them. They still have Grisham out there. They could bring in a first baseman. I just don't see the first baseman on the free agent market that's worth it, though. But we'll see how things work out. Prediction, Giants sign Correa 5 years, 128. Opt out after the 3rd year. As a Giants fan, I would still be salty about Judge, and now Heyman is the most hated man in the Giants fan base. Well, I can understand why you're salty about John Heyman, but as far as the Carlos Correa contract, it's not going to end at 5 years. At the smallest contract I could see him getting is maybe another 3-year, types, the same contract he just signed with the Twins, where he got $35 million annually. Short-term deal like that to kind of keep his average annual value up. Go after the free agent market next year when he's still going to be young enough to still get a great salary. And there's not going to be as many free agent shortstops on the market, but there's a lot of options out there, and the Giants are going to have to bring him in. I think they might be a little bit desperate, so I don't think you're going to be able to get him for a $25 million average annual value. I think you're looking at least 28 to 32, maybe 33. Will he be a Padre, though, in 23? I think Tatis will. Can we make some trades about the D-backs outfielders? Yes, we'll do some of that as well. 8 years is crazy part. AAV for Nimmo is about right. I agree. Heyman is hated by everyone. I don't know about hated by everyone. I still, I appreciate the man's insight. I mean, they were doing a little, tidbit on him as far as, holding court with young reporters back in early 2000s anyway. He was in the middle of a bar talking to a whole bunch of people and broke down a signing anyway. At that winter meetings when he was literally just standing around talking to people. The man knows his baseball, has a lot of connections, and he will return from this, no doubt about it. Justin, any update about Carlos Correa or other top shortstop candidates? Not as of yet. Correa's obviously the top one out there. Maybe we'll see him signed sometime in the next 5-6 days or so. Got a feeling Correa coming to the Mets to play third base. Not happening. They don't have, I could say they don't have the money for it, but Cohen obviously does, but there's no need for him to play third base there. I think he still wants to be a shortstop, and I don't see why they'd bring him over, or why he would sign the contract knowing he would be the third baseman. Thoughts on Josh Bell to the Guardians? I thought that was a perfect fit for them. I think the other perfect fit is going to be Sean Murphy if they're able to get the deal done. Liam Hendricks for David Peralta and Alec Thomas? Ouch. That would be a no if I am the Diamondbacks on that one. I mean, I know they need to improve that bullpen, but I am not trading away some top outfield prospects for Alec Thomas. If Correa comes to the Mets, I'll shave my head. Well, I already did that part for you, so I don't think he's coming, but I already got that done. Thank you for subscribing, Jeff. Appreciate that. The channel is exponentially growing. Yeah, we're up over 1.1K. I was hoping to get over that hump by the end of the winter meetings, and we got there. And we'll see how high we can get it up to. I'm in the review process now to be monetized, so hopefully I can do this for you guys full time and get y'all better content, that kind of thing. Rodon to Dodgers is heating up, I see. Well, I think they do need to add a starting pitcher. Rodon would make sense to them, but I haven't really seen anything that really cements to me that he's going to go there. I still think the Yankees are going to be the hardest team after him at this point. But the Cubs need some starting pitching. They haven't been connected to him though. But we'll see where he ends up. The Rangers are supposedly still looking at starting pitching, even after bringing in 4 starting pitchers so far this offseason. So kind of keep things open about that. He does want to be on the East Coast. Okay. Got a lot of comments right now. Hot take: Cody Bellinger will have a comeback-like season. That is a hot take. I don't think he'll get. I don't think he'll have the full, comeback season that everybody's hoping that he will. I think the 1-year, $17.5 million contract actually might hurt him in the long run because everybody else is going to say, hey, this is now 4 straight years of below average production for what your MVP season was. We're going to sign you for maybe a 2-year deal worth $13 million total. I think you should have taken the multi-year contract offers that were out there, even though they weren't necessarily at the MVP value that he once had. Hi Upside, love the new look. What's with the massive overpays in my opinion? It's free agency, and the market this year is a little bit higher. We haven't seen the trades that we usually see, and I think that plays a little bit into why the market is so high. We keep hearing Dansby Swanson to Chicago because he is soon to be wife, etc. Possibly 8 years, $200 million. I think his contract's probably going to end up being around $24 to $25 million. 8 is a little bit rich. I think the contract length is probably going to be in the neighborhood of like 6 years, maybe 7. But I think the Braves are going to be right there if that ends up being the number. Yesterday, I thought the number was going to be probably in the neighborhood of like 20 to 22. Now we're still seeing continued interest in the shortstops out there. So maybe the Cubs will still be able to, glean him away from the Braves. But I haven't really seen him connected anywhere else. Do we get more signings tonight? I doubt it, Jeff. I don't think we're going to get anything else tonight. Welcome in, though. And welcome in, Joel. Dodgers are waiting to sign Ohtani next year. Yes, they are. What's the goal to go full-time? 1.5K? Well, I have to get monetized first, see how things work out and how their structure works. That'd be new to this whole thing. But, if I'm able to go full-time to it, I'm hoping to be able to, quit my job by the end of the year, next year anyway. If I get it even sooner than that, great. But we'll see how the first few months go. Make sure I have a consistent cash flow and go from there. But thank you, Charles, for always being as supportive as you are. Really appreciate it. Trade value website. Yes, we'll go to that here in just a second, Mr. Bryce. Will Ohtani be a Dodger next year? Is that what the Dodgers are doing? Yes, I believe that's why they're keeping their powder dry. I'm expecting a contract 10 years, $50 million per. Who will be off the board tomorrow? I'm going to say it yet again, but it may not happen. Carlos Rodon is my pick to be next off the board. I've said it for ever since the Verlander signing, honestly. Senga could be right there as well. But I think one of the 2 starting pitchers will go. Joel, what do the Blue Jays do? They're going to add a left fielder, some bullpen pieces, and a number 5 starter. You have a good night, Anthony. Appreciate you for joining us. But let's go ahead and flex over to the trade value site anyway. Let me get this updated for you guys. Baker Mayfield did actually win a game. Let me pull up your trade here, Bryce. What was your... You wanted to talk about the D-backs outfielders. That's what it was. Okay. So let's pull up the Arizona Diamondbacks because they have some outfielders to trade. And let's just say to the Yankees, for instance, if they will need a contact hitter, etc. But in case you guys are wondering, this is baseballtradevalues.com. If you guys are curious about if your trade makes sense, check out that website. If you want to keep up to date on all the latest in print, you can go to MLBTradeRumors.com as well. But here, let's go ahead and just check out a couple of opportunities here. Let's go ahead and select the level majors. And McCarthy is one name that's got some value. You can see his value right here. 29.5 is his median value. The Yankees have plenty of pieces that could add up to that. Let's take a look and see what it would cost them. Okay, obviously they don't need to trade Volpe. They're not going to trade Cortez. They may trade Peraza. That might be the move that they make, but he is also the insurance policy if Volpe falls on his face. They could trade Dominguez, but I don't see that happening. I think you're looking more in this range here, possibly a starting pitcher with a couple years left of control in Loaizinga. maybe an outfield prospect in Pereira, something like that. They also have interest in trading away Gleyber Torres. He's got a couple years left on his deal. So if the Diamondbacks are wanting to get major league level talent, maybe they go the Weisinger and Torres route. But let's just say for kicks and giggles, they want a great prospect, an outfielder in return. They have plenty of them already, but maybe they just want to, restock their system a little bit more because that seems to be where they want to go. Let's go ahead and put him in there, and then the Yankees do need to clear out their middle infield situation. So let's just say they throw in Torres as well, right there. If I can get it to click on it, of course. There we go. Right there is pretty close trade value. Not saying Torres would be the guy they'd end up wanting, but right there gets you at least close. Pereira and Gleyber. I think you'd still have to add another, low-level prospect to get that type of deal done. But that deal would look very good, especially for the Yankees. As far as the value here, McCarthy has, let me see how many years left to control. 6 years left to control. So, the Yankees don't really have any cost control with a lot of their players right now. The only pieces they really have control on are going to be pieces like King out of the bullpen, etc. This would be one way to get some youth in that outfield, which is something they really don't have outside of maybe Harrison Bader. But Bader also isn't exactly the youngest prospect anymore at this point. He's pretty much a known commodity, and that would be a great get for the Yankees if they were able to pry him away. But the one I wanted to check out anyway, let me clear this off. I wanted to show you guys the Brewers situation. And my favorite team anyway is the Rangers, in case you guys are new here. So I'm very familiar with all their prospects, etc. Very in-depth, etc. So if you have questions about anybody on the Rangers system, please ask. I can pretty much tell you anything you want to know. But one thing I wanted to check out is something that could solve the Brewers' issues long-term. Would be a trade of Christian Yelich. And you guys might ask, hey, Christian Yelich, that's a completely untradeable contract. Normally I would agree with you. But he hasn't exactly produced for them. He's 30 years old, so he's still technically tradable from a contract perspective. He also has a good on-base percentage, doesn't hit for power anymore at all, only hit 14 home runs, played 157 games, I believe, last year. So he has a chance to get back to his productive years. Do I think he'll ever be the MVP level player again? No, but maybe he gets a little bit of that power back and becomes a productive player anyway. But he's still on-base percentage is right there, top 10 or top 15, I think, in the league right now. And maybe one way of creatively solving the Brewers' problems for 24 would be unloading the contract of Christian Yelich. As the Rangers, we're really trying to. If I'm the Rangers right now, I'm trying to push for a postseason right now as hard as I can possibly can. I'm willing to spend money. I'm not willing to necessarily go into luxury tax to do it, especially this year. That would mean a gain of close to $100 million in payroll in just 1 year. I think maybe a gain of another $20 million would kind of be their limit. But they are looking for a left fielder. They are looking for a closer. They are looking possibly for another rotation addition. And finally, they could use a catcher or a designated hitter. One thought that I had was going out here and saying, hey, Christian Yelich, why don't you go to the Rangers? Well, the trade there, negative 112 value. That means the Rangers would be able to, have the Brewers be able to eat 40 to 60 million of that contract. He has 5 years left on that deal, so spread that out. That's roughly 10 to 12 million dollars at most, anyway. The Brewers could save that money, turn around and invest that in their starting pitching in Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, and Willy Adames. That would be fantastic for them to be able to keep that core together. They save some money and would be able to get some prospects, maybe a prospect or two out of the Rangers for it. Let's just say, for instance, they eat $60 million. That's $12 million a year over the rest of that contract. There you go. Now we only have a negative 52 value. That certainly makes things a lot more palatable if you're a Rangers fan. Now the contract only costs you about $15+ million a year. For a left fielder, that if he gets you, 1.5 WAR a year, that's about the cost of what it would cost to have him in left field. And they had league worst production out there, so literally anything would be better than what they had last year in left field. Christian Yelich, again, high on base. That's what they were looking for in a left fielder this year. An on-base percentage guy who could get on base in front of guys like Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, Nathaniel Lowe. They're power hitters in that lineup, and Christian Yelich would be able to do that. The thing here, though, is that it's not going to cost premium prospects to solve that hole, and they could use the value here to solve other issues. So say they just wanted to solve this one straight up anyway. Say the Rangers are able to say, hey, we'll solve a couple of roster issues that you have. Maybe you want to trade us Woodruff. Now you can re-sign Burns for sure and Adames, and your contract value is now negative 1.7. You could throw in some prospects on each side, maybe a major leaguer here or there, but in all total, that would be a fair deal depending on what you put on the other side. But that would save a lot of money for the Brewers. Now let's say, hey, they don't want to trade their starting pitchers. They want to just unload the Yelich contract. You're still working with negative 52. Let's go over to the Rangers side of it. Say the Rangers, offer them a starting pitcher. They don't really need one because they have their rotation pretty much set, 1 through 5. But they could use a starter. Every team could always use a starter. Dane Dunning has some good value. He's at 19.2. Let's go to the negative side of the equation. Most of the negative side for the Rangers is contracts they've just signed. Those, you're not really going to be able to trade that level of money, and of course the Brewers aren't going to take that money. But maybe you could save, $4 million, something like that, on a Brad Miller contract. Let's throw him in. Gives them a utility player, somebody who could take the place of Colton Wong in that in that role anyway. Not saying he'd be your starting second baseman, but could be kind of your utility player next year. That right there, your value difference, you're looking about 67. Now, what's something that the Rangers could do? Of course, they could turn around and ask for Brandon Woodruff, but one thing I was thinking, it's going to wipe everything off of here. Let me switch it to a 3-team trade. Get the Brewers back on here. The Rangers back on here. And the third team would be the Oakland Athletics. Now, Oakland is certainly looking for some premium assets back. They're said to be looking for some middle infield and for some starting pitching. Those are two things the Rangers have in spades. Middle infielders in their minor league level that are major league ready. They could easily fill in holes in the Oakland Athletics. Sure, it's the same division, but if you're getting a piece like Sean Murphy, then that would really work out for them. But that's something to kind of keep an eye on right now as far as the trade market is concerned. Brewers are going to have to do something to solve their contract issues going forward. They say that they're fine after trading away Colton Wong, saved them $10 million this year. But what does that do for them in the winter of 24 when Adames, Burns, and Woodruff are all free agents? That does nothing for them. They have to do something. There are 3 of their 4 biggest prizes right now, and they have to solve those issues. A year later, they have Devin Williams, a free agent. So they have some issues going forward. But let's get this trade back on the rails here. Let me put it on here. Let's say Yelich again goes to the Rangers. They send about $60 million to the Rangers, so it's more palatable for the Rangers to eat that contract. Again, we're at negative 52. Rangers this time, instead of sending Dunning to the Brewers, they send Dunning. Let me get Miller back in here, if it'll let me. They send Dunning to the A's, if I can click on him. And then they look at Duran. They send him to the A's as well. They send Heim possibly to the Brewers since they're going to bring in a catcher. And where's his name? Smith. He's 8 and change. There he is. If it'll let me click on it. There it goes. Okay. So just a rough estimate of the trade right now. Still, the Brewers are getting about 61 negative value. So basically, they're getting a really advantageous deal for the Brewers right now. They're saving all kinds of money. The Rangers, of course, are getting a little bit surplus, of course, in and out. Of course, they're taking on the money of Yelich. The one piece I haven't added to this, of course, is Murphy. Let me get that done real quick. There we go. Okay. So right there, you're seeing very equitable trade here for the A's. They're getting about fair value for what they'd expect for Sean Murphy, a starting pitcher that slides into their number 3, 4 spot in their rotation, gets them to somebody who can eat some innings. He has pitched over 150 innings, etc., so he's a good innings eater for a very young team, and if he ever hits his potential, things would be great. But the better pieces for them out of this deal would be Ezekiel Duran, somebody who's a power-hitting second baseman, third baseman that they could use. Smith, a good contact hitter, and that's exactly what the Oakland A's are looking for. So Oakland gets some good value here. The one thing here is that the Rangers are sending out a little too much value compared to what they're bringing in. Whereas the Brewers also have negative value. So the Brewers would have to make some adjustments here. They don't really have any other negative assets. But again, they'd have to trade some pieces at some point. Again, I think the most likely would be a guy like Brandon Woodruff. Let's just say we throw him to the Rangers, etc. And there's a very equitable trade. I still haven't figured out the Woodruff part of this deal because I don't think they'd want to move him. But that's just a rough draft of a trade. Let me know what you guys think as far as your own trade possibilities. You can play around with baseball trade values for your own favorite team. I know we got a lot of Phillies fans in here that are looking to improve that bullpen, add another starting pitcher. In case you guys are wondering, the Woodruff contract, 2 years left, total value 50.5. Maybe you could convince the Brewers to take him off their hands and move that value around. But again, three of their top players are hitting free agency after the 24 season. They have to do something as far as solving those issues. But thank you guys for joining us tonight. Cardinals just need a pitcher and an outfielder. Would be about it. Okay. Cardinals are one team I also was looking at as well. Let me clear this off. Okay. Let's go back to a two-team trade. Now that Wilson Contreras is going to the St. Louis Cardinals, they're no longer in need of a catcher, and so they could do some other things out there. So let's go ahead and put St. Louis in here. They're said to be of interest. Oh, too far down. It's Cardinals. There it is. And let's just say they're looking for, a controllable starting pitcher, say like the Marlins. They've made trades before in the past. Let's say the Marlins end up trading Pablo Lopez. We've done him a few times on here, but let's do him with the Cardinals here. Now remember, the Marlins really have had a lot of difficulty as far as getting some bats. There's Anthony. I knew you'd be in here at some point. I know you're a resident Marlins fan. But let's say that for the Marlins, they need some outfielders. They need some talent out there. And so they got Pablo Lopez here at 38.7 as far as median trade value anyway. So let's say they bring in a bat. O'Neill's got 2 years left until free agency. Not exactly fitting the timeline of the Marlins anyway, but that would be the most expendable piece out in that outfield. Newt Barr would be close as well, but let's just say for trade purposes, we include O'Neill. That gives them a solid bat at the major league level. And remember, the Cardinals aren't big on trading away prospects, so we're just looking at their major league roster for just a moment. Right around that 7-8 mark. Maybe they could trade, Montgomery. I don't see that happening, though. They're not trading the MVP and Goldschmidt. They're not trading Arenado. Flaherty has 1 year left until free agency, but they're not trading him either. So as far as major leaguers, you might only be able to get Paul O'Neill. Then you'd have to go to the minor league route in order to finish out this trade. So let's just say for kicks and giggles, they want to go with the catcher since they're not happy with Jordan Stallings. They bring in a prospect in Herrera. Your trade value is pretty close, 38 to 37. Something like that would work. And maybe sprinkle in a low A-ball pitcher to give at least a starting pitcher back to the Marlins so that they can at least hold him up as, hey, we didn't completely give up all of it. You're not getting Gorman for Lopez, sorry. But things would look much better for both teams. They solved their rotation issues going forward for the Cardinals, have insurance in case Flaherty and Montgomery leave, and get a nice higher-level starting pitcher there for you Cardinals fans. Again, I think the surplus of outfielders that the Cardinals have would make this trade work because the Marlins do need to add some hitting, and O'Neill would be a nice hitter for them. Can you do a 3-team trade with the Yankees, Marlins, and Cubs? Cubs get Luzardo, Yankees get Lopez, and Miami get a prospects. I'll flip over to the Marlins real quick just so you guys can see what Luzardo's value is because I'm kind of curious. 27.1. He was, remember, a former top prospect of the A's. He's been in a couple of trades, though. He's had some up and down years, but his value is still very high. You too, Mark. Appreciate you guys for joining us. We're about to cross our 1 hour mark, and winter meetings officially over. We got the Brandon Nimmo signing today, 8 years, 162. But you guys feel free to send us your trades in our comment section of any of our videos. We'll have a few videos coming out for you guys tomorrow. Make sure you check those out. Follow us here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. And you can even follow us down at the bottom of the page. You can see our Twitter handle at UpsideSN. But again, this site that I'm using, baseballtradevalues.com. Go ahead and put your trade through there just to see if it makes sense and see what you guys can come up with. The other site we told you about was MLBTradeRumors.com anyway. That has the Brandon Nimmo signing, the David Robertson signing, 1 year, $10 million, a good bullpen piece. The total contracts right now, payroll anyway, for the Mets is over $328 million, I believe, right now. Tax bill is going to be exorbitant for them, and they still aren't done. They're still going to add at least 2 relievers, I believe, probably 1 starting pitcher, and maybe a third baseman or DH, or both. But Cohen's certainly willing to spend this offseason. We'll see if they bring in J.D. Martinez for the DH, a Senga for the starting pitcher. Do you think the Red Sox overpaid for that outfielder from Japan? Because a lot of pundits from MLB Network and ESPN are saying it's a massive overpay. Absolutely. There's rival GMs that were actually in the conversations for his services. Those contracts offers were in the neighborhood of like $45 million total. They essentially gave him a $90 million contract, double what the rest of the market was at least that's what it sounds like from reports. Another questionable move for the Red Sox. This reminds me a lot of the Runzi Castillo signing that they did years ago. He was an international free agent anyway from Cuba, I believe, at the time. Everybody thought he was the next, great big signing, along with the Yoenis Cespedes era with the Oakland A's when they got him, and it just didn't work out. And that trade or the signing for Castillo cost them a lot of money for, I believe, 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. They gave him double-digit salaries in those years, and he never really did anything at the major league level. This reminds me a lot of that. I'm sure Yoshida is going to do something in Major League Baseball better than Castillo at this point, but $90 million is a hefty sum of money, especially when you consider the rest of the market was essentially at half of that number. But maybe that's what they had to do in order to get him. Maybe they're that high on him and think he's really going to take off, and be the next, great thing. But, I just don't see it. I think he's more of a contact hitter. He has improved his power numbers each of the last 4 years. However, even in NPB, that was only a 21 home run high last year. And sure, he's on the upswing, but it's not exactly a power bat that you're bringing in, and you're paying him like one. So that's what I wonder if that's a good decision for the Red Sox. They basically spent the money on Xander Bogaerts on him. That was the other part that basically hurt the Red Sox chances of bringing back Xander Bogaerts. And the other part, if I'm a Red Sox fan, you're telling me we're paying a guy who's never suited up in Major League Baseball $90 million over 5 years, yet we can't bring back our all-star shortstop who won us a World Series? Are you kidding me? That doesn't make sense if I'm a Red Sox fan, and that's where I have a real issue with Kyle Bloom and the decisions he's making. The trade with Mookie Betts, he told us at the time he had to make the trade. Betts didn't want to stay around, so they got good value while they could, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they did get Verdugo, and I guess he's still with the team, but I mean, we're talking about Mookie Betts. I mean, you figure it out. You have to at that point, and it just seems to be like the Red Sox are heading down a tunnel they're not going to be able to at least claw their way out of over the next couple of years. I just wonder if they're ultimately going to have to end up going through a rebuild, a complete rebuild, considering the costly contracts that they already have on the roster, their aging core, Devers becoming a free agent after next year. Things are not exactly sunny in Boston right now. Reminds me of Ichiro with a lack of power and being more of a defensive outfielder. He might hit for a high average, but with no power. Yeah, he's more of a contact hitter, like I said. Not a lot of power, but I don't think he's going to be half the hitter Ichiro was. Remember, Ichiro was a 400 on-base guy. I don't think Yoshida's going to be anywhere near that. I think he's probably going to be 350 at best, and I don't know about that. Let me see. I just saw something pop up here as far as a notification. They're saying Rodon, or the New York Yankees are actually closing in on Carlos Rodon, according to MLB Insider. We'll see if they can actually get the contract done, so maybe we'll get that news tomorrow. For those of you guys new to us, we're going to update you guys on anything that happens from Major League Baseball's hot stove, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'll keep you guys updated. A lot of Yankees fans over the last few days have been through the ringer. I mean, the report from John Heyman basically saying Judge was going to go to the Giants and then retracting it, and then all the, ups and downs of the Judge saga. Now you bring in Aaron Judge. What are you going to do next to solve that rotation? You guys have been through the ringer, and don't really ever worry about Yankees fans because they've had a lot of success. Their team always competes for championships. At least that's what their mantra essentially is. They haven't won one since '09, But it's not very often you feel sorry for Yankees fans. Just the drama that's gone on with them over the last 48 to 72 hours. You got to feel for those Yankee fans. Who are the backup plans now if the Marlins, if they trade both Jesus and Pablo? Well, I'm sure they have, they don't really lack for pitching depth right now. They got a lot of young guys that they can turn to. Sandy Alcantara, the Cy Young winner in the NL. Their rotation is going to be fine. They just need to hit more, period. Whatever they have to do to be able to hit more, that's what they should do. That's basically been their problem. They haven't been able to give any run support to any of their starting pitchers, whether they were good, bad, or indifferent. They just haven't gotten anything going offensively, so they need to do something there. With Miami getting the head of scouting from the Astros as our new assistant GM, do you think we're going to improve international scouting and development? Sure, international draft is coming, and you have to be able to draft well in just the regular Major League Baseball draft, as well as the international draft when that is finally done. But appreciate you guys joining us tonight. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Thank you guys for joining us over the last few days. Been a lot of fun chatting baseball with you guys. As I mentioned, we will probably be doing a basketball or hockey game this weekend. Jump into that as well. And we'll keep you guys up on everything that's happening around Major League Baseball. Don't worry, we're not going to slack off on it. But got work back starting again tomorrow. It's been fun covering the winter meetings for you guys. And if you guys are new to us, hit that subscribe button. Helps us out a lot. Hit that like button on this video. Remember, you can drop us a comment on any of our videos, and we'll see that as to any of your questions that you have. For instance, Hawks right now. Where does Brian Reynolds go? I think the trade market is still robust for him. I wonder if the Giants end up trying to get him done. Dodgers are said to be interested as well. Pretty much anybody who's in need of a left-handed hitting outfielder, the Blue Jays, the Mariners. But if I had to guess, now that Nimmo goes back to the Mets anyway, that solves that problem. I think the Giants are a good fit as far as a center fielder. They are still looking for a second outfielder, so maybe we'll see something there. But if I had to guess, I'd probably say Giants. But anyway, thank you guys for joining us tonight. As I mentioned, we'll do this every single evening on the weekdays anyway. We will do some live basketball or hockey for you on Saturday. Make sure you send us a comment as to which game you want us to do, and we'll see if we can do that one for you. And again, if you have questions or whatever, submit them on other videos. I see those comments anytime, and maybe I'll even put it in a live video for you guys and answer your question. But thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.